first time that I get such an introduction, so thank you. I think I should thank you first, because it doesn't happen that often. And sorry, I'm switching to English. I won't switch back to German, okay? It doesn't happen that often that when you start speaking about pensions at 8:30 in the morning, that the full room is filled. So thank you for showing up at this early time. And thank you, Zurich, for inviting me to share some insights about the Dutch system. Philip already touched something, so I'll try to give more insights. Please feel free to interrupt as I go along. Ask your questions, raise your hand, shout, I don't know. I have some questions myself to you as well. So it would be nice if you respond to that. Yeah? Okay, let's start. What are we going to do? I will share some insights, 20 minutes. I hopefully make it in 15, but I see it's already 9 o'clock. Something about the Dutch pension system. How does it work? How does it look like? What are the numbers of the system? How does it look like there? We're in a full transition. We're swapping the system from a DB to a DC plan. I will share some insights there. And it's always interesting to know how does the market react on that. Do they react, and how do they react? Do we look alike? If you look at the picture, we're Dutchies, like to make things a bit more look nicer than it really is. So I think there's a filter on the picture, but I think you get the difference between the both countries. I think we look alike from a higher level. But if you go and deep dive into the system, there are some differences. And I think our highest point is 300 meters. I think you call it a doorstep, maybe. And Philip asked me to put in a statistic slide as well. So I want to share an interesting slide about the pension gap between men and women. And if I look into the room, well, we have some work to do there, I think. In general, there's a pension gap in the European Union, in Europe of 26%. So women get 20% less pension than men, which is strange. And we're there on the top of the list as well. So 37.9% is the actual gap between men, the pension gap between men and women. You do it a bit better. How does the Dutch system work? There is a first pillar, of course. We all have a first pillar. And if I speak about the first pillar, it's about old age, death, and disablement. So sick, the first 2 years in the Netherlands, if you become sick, the employer pays your salary. And after 2 years, the system will be put in place. And it's interesting, Philip already mentioned it, it's a fixed amount. So every resident of the Netherlands will get a fixed amount. First question, how much? 300 euros. It's close, per month, I hope. Yeah, well, yeah. It's approximate. I speak in euros, but well, 90%, and it's in Swiss franc. 110 in Swiss franc. It's about 1,000 euros a month. If you're married, if you're single, then it's approximately 1,400. And the question is, when do you get it? And I would like to do a test with you. Is that okay? Are you in for some? Yes. Yes? Okay, cool. Thank you for your response. Okay, can you please stand up? All? And it's a test. If you think the pension age in the Netherlands is lower than 65, you can sit down. Oh!
now or in a few years?
Now, currently. Yeah. So currently, You think it's lower?
Yeah, they are always at the beach. So.
Actually, there's no fixed retirement age in the first pillar. So now, if you retire, it's 66 and 4 months, 60 years and 4 months, and it will increase in the future. So I'm 47. I will receive my AOW when I'm 69 and a half. So if you're younger, well, that's I think the majority is my age. If you're younger, then you'll receive it later. If you're a bit older, then you will get it later. Yeah. So I think that's what you should know. Please hold on, Stan. Then there is, because there is a strange thing in the Netherlands, we also have a pension age in the second pillar. And if I speak about the second pillar, it's about the employee-employer relation. So, what's the pension age in the second pillar? If you think it's higher than 65, you can sit down. You're both right. So that's cool. Thank you. Thank you. You can sit down. We sit down and relax. We aim at 68. There's a set pension age of 68, but it's very common that you take it earlier. So you retire earlier than the actual pension age. But there's a big difference, and there's a gap between the first and the second pillar. So you get your pension on 66 years and 4 months, and the second pillar pension when you become 68. How much is it? Yeah, that's a big question, because how much do you put in? We do not have a mandatory pension fund planning. So there are some industry-wide pension funds who are obligatory, but well, let's say 85% is in such a fund, and the rest, 15%, is not in a pension fund and it's not mandatory, so you're free to set up your own pension plan. And the last, third pillar, which is personal savings. Yes, please.
Victor, the AOW, how is it financed?
Well, actually, I'm not sure about the English word, but it's omslagstelsel. So you get the clue? Sorry?
Yes, you go.
Yeah, but, well, it's the workforce pay for the people who receive it.
Only the workforce or subsidies from other areas? We have in our industry tobacco taxes we put in there. We have VAT we use to finance the first pillar. How is it financed? We used to get some gas out of the ground, and it's said, but it's basically the system works. It's financed by the workforce for the people who receive it. And when it started, it was 1 retired person for 7 workers, and now it's approximately 3.5. So there lies the problem. So the pension age or the AOW age will increase. Thank you for your question. Dutch system, company-wide pension funds and rules, second pillar. Okay, let's take a look at the numbers. We like to look at numbers. 1,400 billion under assets in the pension market in the Netherlands. I'm speaking about euros. If you look at the active accrual, so no annuities, then 871 billion is involved, and 75% of that is defined benefit, so average pay, final pay systems, and 25% is in defined contribution. When you look at the annuities, so the payouts, 95% is in defined benefit. So we already moved from a defined benefit to a defined contribution, and only 5% is in DC, looking to the payouts. Funny fact, 2 billion, a typo, 2 billion is not collected yet. So it lies with the funds. And like Philip mentioned, the 10 largest funds control 80% of the investments. So that's the industry-wide funds like construction, metal government and healthcare, but also company funds like Rabo, ABN, and ING banks. It's in Dutch, but I think you get the numbers, right? 738 billion lies with pension funds and insurance companies and premium pension institutes, PPIs, share the rest. So 85% lies with the pension funds. If you look at the accrual or the payout phase, then 86% lies with the pension funds as well. So the pension funds have the majority of the market. (170) approximate pension providers with over 150 funds. And they're all under strict regulations for their board members, for education, for accountancy rules, for all kind of things. Insurance company has a small piece of the market, and the PPI, it's a recent vehicle or a recent provider, have only 7. We have only 7 of that. It's a small group. And it's decreasing. So the number of pension funds is decreasing because the administration costs, we had a nice chat about that, the administration costs of a pension fund is extremely high, so it doesn't make sense to to set up a fund for, let's say, 4 people. Philip, you were paying 800,000 euros administration cost a year and a premium of 100,000, so it doesn't make sense. You need a vast majority to get in there. But we're going to swap. We're going to swap the system from a DB to a DC plan. Why? Because it's not future-proof, it's old, it's outdated, and soon we will drop on your list, basically. Netherlands will lose its position as the number 1 in the Mercer Index, looking forward how it looks like in 2030. And it's because we have fewer workers, the system has to change, the pension age has to increase, we have to move, and it's not longer possible to guarantee all the annuities. So what we do? 85% of the assets lie in a DB plan, defined benefit plan, and we'll move from a DB plan to a defined contribution plan. Only premium. Not the accrual, not only the accrual, but also the current value. So we have to swap it per 2028. This is how it looks like. Obviously, you put in money and you get something out. There's no set rate, so it's a market vehicle. So if you're an insurance company, so you have a question? Oh, no, sorry. When you're the conversion rate is set not by the government, but it's set by the market, based obviously on longevity and on interest rates. And there's a time plan. So if you look at the time plan, there's a time frame. Insurance companies have it's a lower below the line. We started in July 2023. The legislation came into place in 2023, and we discussed it for about 10 years. It was a political discussion. Are we going to change this? How are we going to change it? The transition date, was set at January 27. It's already changed to January 28. So I have the feeling that we're going to change it again to 29 because it's quite a transition. And where you see that companies with an insured plan have some time left, where pension funds have to change or have their plans ready per January 1st, 2025. End of this year. How does the market respond to that? We have a bit of cold feet. Pension funds, they started, but company pension plans, only 74% of the market has started. And started means, how does the system look like? It doesn't mean we have already changed it into the new plans. If we conducted a survey to get this information out, 150 employers, the large employers in the Netherlands, and if you ask the employees, why didn't you start yet? They are pointing to others. I'm not sure what the rest of the market will do. And if you ask, okay, what do you think about how will your plan look like? They'll say, oh, well, I take the budget and I'll do the same as my budget is right now. So they're really reluctant to act on the transition. And as I mentioned, if we asked it 2 years ago and people thought they will be ready in 25, and if you ask it now, people will think, or companies will think, that they will be ready in 27, just before the end date. Fun fact is that if you ask, how are you going to compensate, because it's basically a loss for the employee, how are you going to compensate the loss of the pension? The majority will use this momentum basically to look at other employee benefits. So to the employee condition package to try to find out if they can compensate it, otherwise it will cost more money than it does now. And I think it's like we sometimes all act, when am I going to start to move more because it's good for my body, I'm taking care of my own health, I will start tomorrow. And that's what you see with employers too. Are you going to change? No. 80% of the employers use the current plan for the future. There is one escape in the transition. There's one escape in the transition. You can keep the pension plan, the current pension plan for your current employees after 2028. So they won't change. For your new employees, you have to set up a new plan. So you keep in 2 plans at one company, which I think is not a good idea. How is it financed? Or what do we put in? There's an expected average of premium of almost 20%, 19.9% of the pension base. So the premium, I'm not sure what's the average in Switzerland to put in a pension plan? Does anyone know? Can we compare it? Do we look alike or are we really different?
Not so different.
It's not so different?
It's a sliding scale. That starts on 9 up to 20, 22.
Okay.
I mean,
it's a ladder basically, yeah, okay. Yeah. Between 50.
Overall.
Okay. We used to have it like that as well. It's a ladder as well. So we put in, hey, there stands 2%, which is strange. It's 20. I think we have to all add it 0. But basically, that's it. I think the numbers were in. So the average is 20%. The vast majority lies between 14 and 27%. So if you put in additional money, the outcome will be different, but I don't have to explain it to you. Okay. Looking to the time, and knowing that this is my final slide, are there any questions for now? Yeah.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. Now you're changing the system. You're currently #1 on the Global Pension Index. What impact will this have?
Yeah, I think we know in a few years when Philip is back and sharing his insights. Well, I think the solidness of the outpayments for the participants of the plans, so so the people basically, will decrease. So the guarantee will be less. Maybe it will lead to a higher outcome, because we're going to use the premiums we use for guarantee. We're going to use it to invest basically more. So the outcome will be higher, but it will be more uncertain. So I think we will drop on the list. Definitely. Thank you. Good question.
has decided to go this direction in the Netherlands?
Politics. So basically, the politics, together with social partners, unions, have decided to make such a new plan.
But you did not have a referendum.
No, no. We don't. No, we know. No, we're not used to that. We don't have referendum. So the politicians decided. There was, of course, it took us 10 years to come to the new plans. So there has been a lot of discussion about how it should look like in the future. No referendum on that. No. We didn't ask anyone. Yeah.
Can you give us a bit?
I at the moment don't really understand the motivation why the Netherlands did it. I understand why a company wants to move from a defined benefit to a defined contribution, but as a country, what is the motivation to do that move? As an individual company, it's clear. Mm-hmm. As a country, what were the thoughts to do such a move?
Basically, the change in the workforce and how that looks like. So we have more independent workers. The guarantees that lies under the annuities were extremely high. Financial markets. It was decided during a very low interest rate. So then there was a lot of money needed to fill the pension funds. And actually, there comes a difficult part between my opinion and why they decided. Actually, they had the thought, and obviously it was a calculated decision, that using the amount of money that we use for guarantees, putting it into the investment, will lead to a higher income. And I think one difficult part for especially industry-wide pension funds, that the outpayments will vary every month. So if once you're retired and you receive a rent, it will be different every month. And I think that no one is realizing that, but that will give, well, I think a big impact on the people. Does that answer your question a bit?
Yeah, so it's basically the result of a low interest rate.
Low interest rate, high longevity, market circumstances, an outdated system.
So the sustainability was not.
Yeah.
Do you have any assumptions how the variable annuities can change from month to month?
Short answer, no. Well, it depends on investments, but there are a lot of regulations to keep them within a bandwidth. So what they now have calculated is somewhere between -5% and +5%.
That's much.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's not much, or it's not much. Well, it depends. If you earn, let's say, 2,000 euros a month, and the final 5% is going to the grocery store and get your groceries, then it's much. If you're living somewhere around here, maybe it's different. Thank you. Last final question? Or no questions anymore?
One last question.
Okay, cool.
Because the Dutch people, they didn't have a choice, you mentioned. Mm-hmm. It's interesting because Switzerland is going to vote on a reform this month. Mm-hmm. Do the Dutch people trust in the system?
Good question. I think they're not interested.
Because they don't have a choice anyway? Or?
No, actually, it depends. It depends who you ask. So if you ask the people who are in the pension business, they are extremely curious about how it will work. They do have a trust in the current system. They see, like many consultants, a lot of work coming to them for changing the plans. If you go out and ask people just at the shop, or people who are in metalwork or healthcare, they actually don't really care. They hope, they think they will get 80-90% of their last income, but that will be a big disappointment later on. So I don't think it's trust. It's they're not familiar with how it really works. Okay. Communication is key.
Thank you,
Thank
Victor
you.
Steenbakker, for your insights. Thank you
for
being with us.